All right, Shabbos, good morning. Let us begin. Another beautiful week ahead of us. Emir Hashem, to learn, to grow, continuing our journey through Masechah Shabbos. I want to begin by thanking our sponsors for this morning's shir. To thank our monthly sponsors, our Talmud Torah sponsors, Alan and Sumairowitz and family, Jason, Deborah, Justin, Rebecca, Mindy, Simcha, and all the grandchildren in the merit of a refuah shlema for Shulamis Tova Bas Mindel. We also thank our Week of Learning sponsors, Yehuda and Jennifer Good Heart, in memory of Jennifer's father, Yishaya Zalman Ben Lazar, and Ira and Miriam Gross, in memory of Miriam's father, Leonard Howard, Aryeh Ben Moshe Halevi Zichron Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamas will have an Aliyah, and the families in Nechama. We thank all of our sponsors for their dedication and their generosity. And about that, let us begin. So we have a lot in Mirat Hashem to do today. Beautiful Gemara. Today's daf is Kuf Yod Dalid 114, and we are picking up on Kuf Yod Gimel Amud Beis 113b at the two dots, 5 lines up from the bottom. So the Gemara in yesterday's daf began speaking a little bit about the motif concerning clothing. We will continue along that particular motif for a little bit. So writes the Gemara as follows: V'tachas kivodo. So just to give you context, the Gemara over here is quoting from the pasuk in Yeshaya. V'tachas kivodo yekod yekod ki yekod eish. So here the Navi is actually making reference to the episode when Sancheriv, the king of Ashur, marches his army against Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael, again, Yeshaya is the Navi, Chizkiyo is the king, and there does not seem to be any possible way that they could overcome Sancheriv's army. A miracle occurs, and that night when Sancheriv's army rested, or I should say slept, so an incredible miracle occurred, and they were all killed. The entire army of Sancheriv was wiped out. The Jewish people were saved. So the pasuk over here makes reference, and it says, "V'tachas kivodo," will literally translate it, underneath their kavod, their honor, yekod ki yekod eish. There was a fire that burned like a fire. So what does this mean? The Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan, "V'tachas kivodo v'lo kivodo mamish." It teaches us, Rabbi say that what? That Allah said the Assyrian soldiers, their bodies were burnt, but their clothing remained intact. In a clear display of miraculous intervention, the bodies were burnt, killing the soldiers, but the clothing remained intact. Rabbi Yochanan l'tamei, da'am Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan kari lema'anei mach bedusi. Because Rabbi Yochanan used to call this clothing those things that give me honor. The clothing of a person honors him. I was supposed to say a person wears nice clothing, dignified clothing, bat coveted clothing. So clothing gives honor to the person. I was, that phrase, clothing makes the man. So that comes from us. The truth is, everything good comes from us. Right? So Mechudah said that ultimately, in the clothing gives a person honor. Rabbi Lazar Omer, v'tachas kivodo, tachas mamish. Rabbi Lazar understands same drasha, but understands that tachas kivodo literally means instead of the body being burned, instead of the clothing being burnt, the body was burnt. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Amar Tachas Kivodo Kisreifas Bnei Aram. So we'll say comes along Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani, and he argues a little bit, and he says that the death of the Assyrian soldiers was that just like the death of Nadav and Avihu. How so? Ma lahalon Sreifas Neshama v'guf kayim, just like over there by Bnei Aaron. So ultimately, again, I will say their clothing and bodies remained intact. It was only ultimately what? It was only their souls, which were quote unquote incinerated. So the Gemara says, "Shreifas neshama v'guf kayim afkan shreifas neshama v'guf kayim." So too by the Assyrian soldiers, same idea. The clothing and the body remained intact, but rather again they were killed through the burning of the soul. So interesting machlokes here about how exactly HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought about the miraculous salvation from Ashur, from Assyria. Was it that the clothing remained intact, the bodies were burned, the clothing and the body remained intact, the souls were burned? That's machlokes. You're going to see the only reason the Gemara is bringing this up is because of the clothing motif. Top of Kuf Yudas. Remember again, the major important takeaway from this was Rabbi Yochanan's idea of that Rabbi Yochanan kari lama'anei mach bedusi, or mach bedusai, that my clothing are the things that give me honor. the idea of said that how a person dresses and how a person puts themselves together in a physical fashion is incredibly important. Top of Kuf Yudalid. The Gemara says, "Minayin l'shilei begadim min haTorah." How do we know that ultimately in Shabbos, what this literally means is, how do you know that there's a biblical obligation to change your clothing? We'll say, what does this mean? This means, how do you know if there's an obligation to go ahead and dress for the occasion? That a person should dress in accordance for the occasion, that they are readying themselves for. Shneimar upashat is bigadov velavash begadim achira. We'll say this is incredible. So this is by the Kohen. The halacha is that when the Kohen would do the Trumas Hadeshen, when the Kohen would take out the ash in the morning, so the Gemara says he would not wear the same clothing for taking out the ash that he would wear for the avoda. So from here you see what? The Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, Limdach Torah Derech Eretz. Torah is teaching us incredible Derech Eretz. What's the Derech Eretz? Begadim shebisha bohen kedera l'rabo, yimzog bohen kos l'rabo. Teaches us incredible lesson. Literally, the clothing that you wear to go ahead and cook for your master, you should not use to pour a cup of wine for your master. So we'll say, what does this mean? The clothing that you use to take out the garbage, to take out the trash, should not be the clothing that you wear ultimately when what? When going ahead and serving the glass of wine, serving your master at the meal. But so this is an incredible yesod in general. It's fascinating because I think societally this has changed. The truth is, it's certainly during the pandemic, so getting dressed is something that has fundamentally changed for many people. Right now, Baruch Hashem, there are people who have daytime pajamas and nighttime pajamas. Right? But even before this, the notion of getting dressed up, society in general has become much more casual, which, okay, it's whatever. But we have to be careful that when it comes, certainly again, to davening, to other things, that there's a mode of dress that's appropriate. Now, of course, that mode of dress could definitely vary depending on where you live and what community you're a part of. But there certainly is this notion of making sure that one is put together in an appropriate. And that appropriateness may be absolutely, community and location subjective. But Lamaisa, you see Chazal teaching us, a person has to be dressed for the occasion. A person comes to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a person comes to daven, a person comes to learn, even just the way a person conducts themselves in general. We all know you feel differently about yourself when you're dressed nicely. Just the way that it is. You feel differently about yourself. And there's a reason for that, because again, that clothing ultimately, again, covers the guf, which houses the neshama. The more effort and importance I put into those clothing, not in a materialistic way, but the more a person takes pride in their outer appearance, you're taking pride ultimately again in the kli, in the utensil, which houses your neshama. The Gemara goes weiter. Amr Rabbi Chibar Amma, Amr Rabbi Yochanan. Genayu leTalmid Chacham, sheyetzid min alam etulav mashuk. A Talmid Chacham should not go out with patched shoes to the marketplace. So we'll say, so again, here you begin to see a little bit of a shift. That as much as every person has an obligation to make sure that they are dressed in an appropriate way. I don't mean appropriate when I say like tznius. I mean appropriate way that my clothing highlights the fact that I recognize that I am Tzelem Elokim, I am in the image of God. A Talmid Chacham, who is the ambassador of Torah, has even a heightened obligation regarding this. So a Talmid Chacham, the Gemara says, it's degrading for a Talmid Chacham to walk out into the marketplace with patched shoes. Can't go about shoes. Rabbi Achanina went out with patched shoes. What it means is patches on top of patches. In other words, to go out with a patch on your shoe, okay, fine. But to go out with patches on top of patches, that's already inappropriate. But it's an incredible statement. Rabbi Chibar Abba says in Rabbi Yochanan, any Talmid Chacham who goes out with revav. Now, what's revav? Rashi says shuman v'chelev, or as they translate, the technical term is schmaltz. Right? So it says, so a person who goes out, a Talmid Chacham who goes out with like a schmaltz stain on his clothing is chayiv misa. A dramatic statement. Shene'emar kol misanai ahavu maves, because the pasuk of the Gemara quotes from Mishlei, literally translated, all those who hate me, this is talking about God, All those who hate God love death. Al tikri misanai ella masni'i. Rather read it as all those who cause me to be hated love death. I will say the idea is that if a Talmud Chacham goes out with a stain on his clothing, it's a chil Hashem. The Talmud Chacham is supposed to be the ambassador of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, supposed to be the ambassador of Torah. And if you're going to be the ambassador of Torah, the ambassador of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have to dress the part. Now, it doesn't mean that a person has to be Talmud Chacham has to be outfitted in the latest fashion, everything beautiful. But what it means is he's got to be clean. He's got to be clean. So if a Talmud Chacham goes ahead and goes out, and his clothing is stained, and his clothing isn't nice, then ultimately, again, he's causing a Kodesh Baruch Hu to be despised. It's very dramatic. Because we know this is how it works. The same way that people judge Judaism by the Jews, right? So if a Jew acts inappropriately, people draw their conclusions about our entire people, which is an awesome responsibility that we each bear. The Talmud Chacham is the ambassador of Torah. Talmud Chacham is the ambassador of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if he's dressed in an unkempt fashion, if he has stains on his clothing, that reflects poorly, not just on Talmud Chacham, but on HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. The Gemara says, Ravina Amar Revad Itmar. Ravina says it's not referring to Shuman or Chilev, to fat or grease, but rather again Revad. And I will say Revad literally means semen. Rashi says Revad Itmar Shichvas Zera. Shichvas Zera. So the Gemara says, Velo Pligi, they're actually not arguing. Habeglima, Habelevusha. One is talking about the outer cloak, one is talking about inner clothing. Rashi says, Beglima, Shehu Elyon Afilu Revav. So an outer cloak, Rabbosai, which everyone could see, even grease, right? Even grease, even Chelev and Shuman is problematic. Belevush, but on an inner garment, so sometimes people get a little bit of schmaltz on their inner garments, so apparently that's not as disturbing, but a semen stain that others could see, that's exceptionally distressing, and the Talmud Chacham must be vigilant about that. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mai dichsev kasher halach avdi Yishayahu aram v'yachif. So both say, but what about the pasuk that says, my servant Yishayahu, he walked around, both saying aram literally means naked, Yachuf means barefoot. See here, what does that mean? Yeshai walked around naked and barefoot, to which the Gemara says, arum bebigadim beluim. Naked, it means he walked around with worn out clothing. The Gemara says, v'yachaf, barefoot, b'mine'alim hamitulaim, with shoes with patches. Now, both say, now as much as we said before, that halacha l'maisa Talmud Chacham is not permitted to go ahead and walk around this way. Nevertheless, because this was done at the behest of the Ribbono Shel Olam, therefore halacha l'maisa Yeshaya was permitted to do so. Tanan Hasam. So what we learned elsewhere? Tanan Hasam. Revav al hamardeya chotzeit. So we're switching gears for just a moment. If a person has revav, we translate it as a stain of either shuman or chelev, grease, fat. So if you have a grease stain on a saddle, chotzeit, it's a chatzitza. And I will say now, chatzitza for what? We're referencing over here now halacha l'maisa by tevila. If you immerse something in a mikvah. So if you immerse something in a mikvah, the halach is you can't have a chatzitza, you can't have any kind of interpositions. So the Gemara says if you have a grease stain on the saddle, that ultimately creates a chatzitza. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, ad ki isr ha'italki. So that's only true if this grease stain is the size of an isra ha'italki. That's a coin. Va'ala begodim. But if you have a grease stain on clothing, mitzad echad in a chotzeitz. If the grease stain is only visible on one side of the garment, it's not a chatzitza. Mishnei tzadin, on two sides of the garment, chotzeitz. It is indeed a chatzitza. Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Yishmael, af mitzad echad chotzeitz. Rabbi Yehuda said Rabbi Yishmael, even on one side it's a chatzitza. Okay, so machlokes. Rabbi Shimon Lakish Rabbi Chanina, mardas mitzad echad o mishnei tzadin. So we'll say, let's go back for just a moment. You told me that a grease stain could be a chatzitza on a saddle. Is that true if it's visible only on one side of the saddle, or only if it's seeped through so that it's visible on both sides of the saddle? Amar Leisi said to him, Zu lo shamati. This I never heard. Kiyotse bo shamati, but I have heard something similar. This nan, Rabbi Yossi Omer, now this is you're gonna see how this all ties together in just a moment. This now Rabbi Yossi Omer, Shel Banoin. So we'll say if you have the article of clothing of Banoin. Now we don't know what that means just yet. We'll translate that shortly. So mitzad echad, clothing of banoin, if you have a grease stain on one side, that creates a chatzitza issue. Vishal bor. But ultimately, again, if it's the article of clothing of a bor, I will say, what's a bor? It means the same thing in Hebrew as it does in English, right? A bor, literally, again, an empty person. Mishneit stadin. His clothing is problematic, ultimately, again, on two sides. In other words, only if the grease goes through on two sides. And ultimately, a saddle should be no more important than the clothing of an Amaretz. Therefore, presumably what we're saying over here, saying the clothing of an Amaretz is only problematic if the stain seeps through on both sides. Then it's a chatzitza. So too on a saddle, the stain is only problematic if it seeps through on both sides. Now, both say, here's where we're going to get into this. My banoin. By the way, what is this? What is this banoin? Right? The Bryce over here quoted about clothing of banoin. It's a chatzitza even if the stain just appears on one side. What's the pshat? Rabbi Yochanan. Elu Talmidei Chachamim she'oskin bebinyano shel olam. Kol yamein. I both say, who are the banoin? So it's a little bit of a play on words. The banoin are those who are actively involved with building the world all of their days. I will say, see, this is incredibly important. What does a Talmid Chacham do? So we said Talmid Chacham learns Torah. So no, what does the Torah of a Talmid Chacham do? The Torah of a Talmid Chacham goes ahead and maintains the world. It builds what. And I will say, I want to say something very important. This is not just true of a Talmid Chacham, someone who spends hours upon hours learning. This is true for all of us as well. When we get up and we learn Torah, we'll say, understand what we're doing. Yes, we are satisfying an obligation because each of us has an obligation to learn. We're gaining greater insight and understanding in halacha, in our Torah. We're gaining a greater deveka, sense of connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when we learn, we are also doing our part in sustaining the world. Torah sustains the world. Torah makes the world go round. And when each of us goes ahead and learns, I will say that each of us are doing our part. That's the great schus in learning that sometimes we don't realize. You think, okay, learning Torah is nice, learning Torah is important, learning Torah is beautiful, but we don't realize that sometimes it's universe sustaining. So I'll say, so when you get up in the morning and sometimes it goes through your head, what am I doing, right? It's Sunday, Baruch Hashem. It's like, okay, it's already late now. Right? I'll say, but during the week, when it's early, you wonder, what am I doing? I'll say, what I'm doing is, I'm sustaining the world. I'm sustaining the world. And so when I don't show up one day or I don't learn one day, so it's not just myself that I'm harming, but ultimately, again, there's an impact, a universal impact from my absence as well. It's an incredible achrayus, an incredible privilege. So the Gemara goes on. Was interesting. There's an interesting halacha. In general, if you find an object, there's a mitzvah of hashavas aveda, returning a lost object. But in general, when someone comes to claim a lost object, just because someone says they lost the object doesn't require you to believe them. So let's say Ruvain, right? I find an object. Ruvain comes, says, that's my object. I have a right to say to Ruvain, give me a siman. Right? Tell me some defining marking of the utensil, of the item that allows me to give it back to you. But I will say the halacha is by a Talmid Chacham, if a Talmid Chacham is able to say, if he says, that is my object, he sees it in my mind and says, that's my object, I give it back to him. Why? Because a Talmid Chacham is considered to have a heightened level of credibility. So what's the type of Talmid Chacham who has this heightened level of credibility, to whom you could return an object even without him giving a siman? The Gemara says, listen to this. Zehamakbid al chaluko v'hafcho. We both say this is incredible. The type of Talmid Chacham that if he puts his shirt on inside out, he'll take it off and turn it right side in. The Rebbe says, so remember again, their garments, much like our garments. So Rebbe says, so remember again, on the inside were the seams, So the Gemara says, a Talmid Chacham who is careful enough with his outer appearance that if he puts his shirt on inside out, he'll take the time to take it off and go ahead and put it right side in. That's a Talmid Chacham that you could return an object to even without him giving a siman. Rashi says, "Hamakbid al chaluko lahafcho, lovsho kishu hafoch makbid alav hafcho, shemakbid al shelo yiru hatfiros hamagunos ve'mari achalok." So we'll say this is really an incredible yisod. What it's saying is a Talmid Chacham who takes himself seriously enough that he wants to be dressed appropriately, who takes his role seriously enough as an ambassador of God, an ambassador of Torah, to go ahead and put his clothing on correctly, that is the type of Talmid Chacham, ultimately, to whom you could return an object, even if he's just able to visually recognize it. It's really incredible. What's the type of Talmid Chacham whom you could appoint as a leader on the congregation? So we'll say, who's the Talmid Chacham who deserves to be a leader on the tzibur? A Talmid Chacham, one who has a lot of knowledge. You could ask him a shaila in any mesechta, and he could answer it even in Meseches Kala. Rashi points out Meseches Kala was one of the smaller, more obscure mesechtas. So if the Talmid Chacham is wise enough that he could answer a shaila in any mesechta, even in the lesser known mesechtas, that's the type of person you could appoint as a leader on the tzibur. Va'am Rabbi Yochanan, Ezu Talmid Chacham shebnei iro mitzuvin lasos lo malachta. This is incredible. Rabbi Yochanan says, what's the type of Talmid Chacham that the townspeople are obligated to support him? So apparently there's an obligation upon the townspeople to support the Talmid Chacham. But what type of Talmid Chacham? To which the Gemara says, Zeh shamaniach chefzo va'osek becheftzei shamayim. The type of Talmid Chacham, Rabbi say, who puts aside worldly matters and fully and wholly devotes himself to divine matters. That's a type of Talmid Chacham who deserves the support of the community. But the Gemara says, V'hani mili l'mitrachle berifte. This is incredible. The Gemara says, let's go ahead, but let's clarify that. What does it mean to support him? What it means to support him is to give him bread. In other words, we'll say the community is not obligated to furnish the Talmid Chacham with luxuries, but if the Talmid Chacham is literally a person who sets aside earthly pursuits in order to wholly and fully devote himself to pursuit of the spiritual, chaftzei shamayim, then Einach Inami, such a person who lives such a lofty life, should be helped by the community. But what's the nature of the help that the community owes him? Bread. Bread to make sure that he has enough to live on. Rabbi Yochanan will say, first wide line, Kuf Yadalam Dalif. Rabbi Yochanan, Ezu Talmid Chacham. We'll say, what's the definition of a Talmid Chacham? Kol sheshol and osa halacha b'chol makom va'omra. We'll say, the definition of a Talmid Chacham is one who you could ask a shayla in any place and he could answer it. Lamay nafkamin. Rabbi will say, at the end of the day, what does it really matter? What does it matter if someone's called a Talmid Chacham or not? To which the Gemara says, Leminuye parnes ala tzibor. Because both say you want to be able to, so anyone who you appoint to a leadership position should be a Talmid Chacham. So listen to this. So let's say a Talmid Chacham is proficient only in one Masechta. In other words, let's say he's proficient in the Masechta that he's learning, but doesn't have a more general, knowledge. So what's Talacha? Ba'asrei. Such a person could be appointed to a leadership position in his community. But if he knows all Torah, Bereishim Masifta, you could appoint him as Rosh Yeshiva. So it's interesting. A person who has lesser knowledge could be appointed to a local position of leadership. A person who has a vast, voluminous repository of knowledge could be appointed Rosh Yeshiva. So we'll say, let's go out for just a moment. So remember again, this whole discussion started because the Gemara was speaking about the baluin, right? Or shel banoin, right? Banoin. So clothing of banoin. So the Gemara says, who are the banoin? So the Gemara says, the banoin are Talmidei Chachamim. Talmidei Chachamim. Why are Talmidei Chachamim called banoin? Because they are bonin olamo. Because ultimately, I will say, what happens? They build the world. Sha'oskin bebinyano shel olam. Now the Gemara gives a different definition. So the Gemara says, Rishim Lakish Omer, Amar, Elu Kelim Ha'ul Yarin Ha'ba'in Mimidina Sayam. So we'll say, to which the Gemara says, what are Bana'in? Bana'in ultimately, again, are little Kelim Ha'ul Yarin. Look at Rashi, it's almost right across in Rashi. Kelim Ha'ul Yarin, Hadislan Bana'in Mitzadach. We spoke about the clothing of Bana'in. Even if they have a stain on one side, that is a chatzitza, hainu kelim shel ul yarin, balonim, clothing of bathhouse attendants. Sheyesh lahem aluntios chashuvos les ateh b'aim b'nei adam chashuv mitzesam min hamerchatz umakpidin al tinuf ma'at u'benan lo shebnei ras. Listen to this. So we'll say now, Shimon Lakish says, what are banoim? Banoim, interestingly enough, is the clothing is the clothing that is worn in the bathhouse. So when you would go ahead and go to the bathhouse, so if you are one of the high rollers, right, one of the chashuva people, when you would come out, they would give you like a robe or a towel, but not just any robe or towel. A robe or towel made of very fine fabric. That's banoin, the Gemara says. Lemimra tichyernenu. So you're telling me then that banoin, this towel or robe that you got in the bathhouse, was white? Listen to this incredible Gemara. Rabbi Yana said to his sons, Banai, my children, do not go ahead and bury me in white clothing or in black clothing. Levanim, don't bury me in white clothing, Shemelo Eske, because maybe I won't go to Gan Eden, and I'll end up going Chas v'Shalom to Gehenna. Ve'eye kichasan bein avelim, and I'm going to end up being like a chasan in the middle of mourners. Because Rabbi say again, the chasan wears white, right, and mourners wear black. So you hear this, Rabbi say. So Rabbi Yanai says to his kids, don't bury me in white, because if I end up going to Gehenna, I'm going to look a little bit out of place. I'm going to be dressed in white, and everyone else is dressed in black. Shchorim, but don't bury me in black. Shema Eska, because maybe I will go to Gan Eden. Ve'eye ka'avel bein chasanim, and then I'm going to look out of place, because I'm going to go ahead and be like an avel, a mourner, right, dressed in black, sitting amongst chasanim dressed in white in Gan Eden. Elo bekelim ha'ol yorin ha'ba'im medinas hayam. Rather, Rabbi Yanai said to his children, bury me in these kelim ha'ol yorin that come from overseas. Which Rabbi say sounds like what? Alma sumkininu. It sounds like therefore they're colored. They're colored. To which the Gemara says, Lokashia, habiglimi, habilavushi. To which the Gemara says, you're right. The truth is, the kelim ha'ol yorin, if it's a cloak, it was colored, but if it was clothing, it was white. So we'll say, so therefore again, kelim ha'ol yorin, ultimately again, when we're talking about clothing, refers to white clothing, but ultimately again, when referring to a cloak, could even be colored. So we'll say, so just as an aside, the statement of Rabbi Yanai is really quite fascinating. We see this notion that somehow the clothing that you're buried in is the very clothing in which you are cloaked in Olam Haba or Chas v'Shalom in Gehenna. So Rabbi Yanai giving his children explicit instructions: don't bury me in white because maybe I'm going to go to Gehenna. Don't bury me in black because maybe I'm going to go to Gan Eden. Rather, bury me in Sumki. I will say, so just to understand what's happening over here, this white represented fine linen garments. It wasn't just the color white, but rather, again, it was very fine fabric. Which Shabbos says why this Gemara is very important on two levels. First of all, halacha l'maisa, this is why we bury in tachrichim. Right? So Shabbos said, what are tachrichim? Tachrichim are simple white shrouds. Simple white shrouds. We saw this in the last cycle of Dafim, we saw some white cotton, that it used to be that the wealthy would bury their dead in very expensive clothing. The poor would often feel that they could not give their loved ones a proper burial and would leave bodies by the side of the road. Chazal therefore instituted that halacha l'maisa, everyone, rich and poor, buries in the same simple shrouds. Same simple shrouds. Simple linen shrouds. So say that's also based on this Gemara. Simple linen shrouds. I will say what it also says is an incredible humility. Right? Can you imagine this? Rabbi Yanai didn't know where he was going. Right? Rabbi Yanai quoted all over Shas. He didn't know if he was going to Gehenna. He didn't know if he was going to Gan Eden. Oy vavoy. If Rabbi Yanai didn't know where he was going, what am I going to do? I will say, but you see over here an incredible humility in the way you live life. That lemaisa, right? Lemaisa, again, we all have accomplishments, but a person should never rest on those accomplishments. And if you live life with like this lack of surety, I don't know what's going to happen to me. Because I don't know what's going to happen to me, I have to try my best to ensure that in Yeretz Hashem, I go to the right place after 120. If Rabbi Yanai couldn't rest on his accomplishments, then we certainly cannot as well. Good, Abba, say back to the Gemara. Beautiful, beautiful. So again, back to the Gemara. Rabbi Shmuel Omer. Supposed to remember again, we saw Machlokes in the Mishnah in yesterday's daf regarding the ability to burn leftover fats from Shabbos and Yom Kippur. So if you remember again, so just to quote to you the Mishnah again, the Mishnah said, quoted first Rabbi Shmuel, right? Rabbi Shmuel said, Chelvei Shabbos krevim b'Yom Kippurim, aval lo sham Kippurim b'Shabbos. Rabbi Shmuel said, you could burn the leftover fats from Shabbos and Yom Kippur, but not from Yom Kippur on Shabbos, because Rabbi Shmuel holds that Shabbos has a greater sanctity than Yom Kippur. Rabbi Akiva, on the other hand, said, Lo shal Shabbos krevim Yom Kippurim, lo shal Yom Kippurim krevim b'Shabbos. Rabbi Akiva said, neither. You can't burn Shabbos and Yom Kippur, nor can you burn Yom Kippur on Shabbos. Now the Gemara is going to analyze this. Tan Rabbanan. Olas Shabbos b'Shabbosov. So what I said, the pasuk says, you shall offer up the Ola of Shabbos on its particular Shabbos. It says the Gemara, what does this mean? So limeid al chalvei Shabbos shekrevim Yom Kippurim. This teaches us that what? That the fats of Shabbos can be offered up on Yom Kippur. Right, so which means if you have any leftover fats from the sacrificial order of Shabbos, you can burn it on Yom Kippur. So the Gemara says, Yachol afshom Kippurim b'Shabbos. You might have thought that you could even burn leftover fats from Yom Kippur on Shabbos. Tam Lomer b'Shabbos. So therefore the pasuk says Dafka on Shabbos. Div Rabbi Shmuel. So we'll say these words are Rabbi Shmuel. Right. So remember again, Rabbi Shmuel holds that halacha l'maisa. You could burn from Shabbos on Yom Kippur, but you can't burn from Yom Kippur onto Shabbos because Rabbi Shmuel holds that Shabbos has a greater sanctity than Yom Kippur. Rabbi Akiva says no. Olos Shabbos b'Shabbos. So pasuk says you burn the Ola of Shabbos on Shabbos. Limid al chavli Shabbos shekrev miyamtiv. It teaches me that what? That halacha l'maisa. If you have leftover fats from Shabbos, and Shabbos goes into Yom Tiv, you could burn it on Yom Tiv. Yochol af b'Yom Kippur. And you might have thought you could burn it on Yom Kippur as well. Talmud lomar b'Shabboso. Therefore, the pasuk says only on its Shabbos. Kesha timtzu lomar l'divrei Rabbi Yishmael. So, this is actually very interesting. According to Rabbi Yishmael, nedarim unedavos krevim Yom Tiv. Rabbi Yishmael holds that halacha l'maisa. Nidarim and Nedavos. So let's remember again, Nidarim and Nedavos are voluntary offering, right? A Neder is a vow, a Nedava is a gift. So Nidarim and Nedavos can be offered up on Yom Tiv, which is an incredible novelty, because remember again, these are not time-bound karbanos. Yet the halacha is, Rabbi Shmuel says, you could offer it up on Yom Tiv, and therefore, v'chi itzrich kra l'Yom Kippurim. When the pasuk comes to be matter something, it comes to be matter that what? That I could burn the fats of Shabbos on Yom Kippur. The div Rabbi Akiva, but according to Rabbi Akiva, Nidarim u'Nedavos ain't craving b'Yom Tov. According to Rabbi Akiva, you cannot offer up Nidarim and Nedavos on Yom Tov, and therefore v'chi itzdirich kra l'mishri b'Yom Tov. When the pasuk comes to be matir or something, it comes to be matir, they're burning a fat left over from Shabbos on Yom Tov. Rabbi Zera says, I'm a days. Suppose this is actually very interesting. So Ravina says as follows: Ki avina beBavel. When I was living in Bavel, Hava Amri Hadisanyo, we used to say over the following brisa, and it was as follows: Disanyo, Yom Kippurim Shechalios Erev Shabbos. Well, this is an interesting case. If Yom Kippur falls out on a Friday, so the way our calendar is set up, you can't have this. But Lamaisa, before the calendar was fixed, if Yom Kippur falls out on a Friday, Lo Hayu Token. So it says they would not blow the shofar. Now understand, Rashi says over here, Lo Hayu Token. What shofar are we talking about? Lo Hayu Token. Sheish Tekiyas Shetoken Berev Shabbos Lahafdil Ulahavdil Mishum Yom Kippurim Kadosh Kishabbos Asa B'chol Malachos. So it says we're going to explain in a bit more detail in just a moment. We know that on Erev Shabbos, they used to blow the shofar. We're going to see they used to blow 6 tekiyos, 2 units of 3. That was done in order to warn the people, to remind the people that Shabbos was approaching and they should stop doing malacha. So listen to this. So the Brisa says that when Yom Kippur fell on Erev Shabbos, they would not blow the shofar on Yom Kippur going into Shabbos. Right? Now we'll say, now why not? Well, how you talking? Now why not? So Rashi says, because Yom Kippur and Shabbos have the same sanctity. Remember, the only reason you would blow the shofar, let's take a step back. Why do you blow the shofar on a regular Erev Shabbos going into Shabbos? In order to remind the people that a day of heightened sanctity is coming. Stop malacha, stop what you're doing. When it was already Yom Kippur on Erev Shabbos, they would not sound the shofar. Why not? Because Lamaisi again, Yom Kippur has the same sanctity as Shabbos. Furthermore, Ubematzei Shabbos lahayam avdil and divrei hakol. And Abba say, if Yom Kippur fell out on Matzei Shabbos, they wouldn't make Havdalah. Why would they not make Havdalah? Because Abba say, when they make Havdalah, only when you're going from a period of heightened sanctity to a period of lower sanctity. But because Shabbos and Yom Kippur are the same sanctity, Therefore, what? No havdalah. Divrei hakol. Fine. So we'll say this is Ravina talking, and everybody agreed with this. Everybody agreed with this. So the Gemara says. So Rashi points out, Lahayim avdilim b'tfila hamavdil ben kodesh lekodesh k'mosha avdilim b'yom tesh chalis motzei Shabbos. So we'll say they wouldn't make havdalah. Fine. So the Gemara says, Ki saliknu al when I came to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkechise the Yehuda Brei Reb Shimon Pazi. I found Yehuda, the son of Shimon Pazi, the Yosef Kamer, who was sitting and he was saying the following thing. Rabbi Akiva he. They will say that this price that we just quoted reflects the view of Rabbi Akiva. Why? The Rabbi Yishmael, because we'll say, remember again, this price reflects the view that Yom Kippur and Shabbos have the same sanctity. So because they have the same sanctity, if Yom Kippur is on Friday and you're going into Shabbos, there's no need to blow the shofar. Why not? Because they're days of equal sanctity. And when Yom Kippur falls out on Motzei Shabbos, there's no need for Avdallah because they're the same sanctity. So Ravina says, when I was in Bavel, everybody agreed with this. When I came to Eretz Yisrael, they told me that this really only reflects the view of Rabbi Akiva. The Rabbi Yishmael, because if it was Rabbi Yishmael, Kevan Damar Chalvei Shabbos Kevan Yom Kippurim, since Rabbi Yishmael holds in general that the leftover fats from Shabbos can be burnt on Yom Kippur, so therefore Bob said, what do you see from there? Then Rabbi Yishmael's model, Shabbos has a higher sanctity than Yom Kippur. So interestingly enough, according to Rabbi Yishmael, it would appear that what? Liska, when Yom Kippur falls out on Friday, we really should go ahead and blow the shofar. Why? So we'll say people should know that there's a difference in the sanctity of Shabbos and Yom Kippur, and that technically speaking, were you to have some leftover fats from Shabbos, you would go ahead and what? Burn them on Yom Kippur. And I said, you don't have to do that. Why? Kohanim's reason, both in general, the Kohanim have zrizos. So because the Kohanim have zrizos, the Kohanim don't need the blowing of the shofar, right? The Kohanim know what to do when. To which the Kohanim's reasoning. Are the Kohanim's reason? Is that true? Are the Kohanim also maybe those Kohanim are not all they're cracked up to be. Excuse me, Kohanim, right? Sorry. I have to apologize. Saeed is smiling at me, right? So I'll say, so again, maybe the Kohanim are not so zoriz. After all, Vatinan, we learn Shalosh lahav fila sami malacha. Shalosh lahav deal ben kodesh chavos. On any given Erev Shabbos, they used to blow 3 sets of shofar blasts. The first 3 were to tell people to stop doing malacha. The second 3 were to tell people that it's Shabbos. And I will say, where did we blow the shofar? Where was the shofar blown? In the Beis Hamikdash. In the Beis Hamikdash. Then I will say, if ultimately again the shofar is being blown in the Beis Hamikdash, then it sounds like who is it really being blown for? The Kohanim. So I will say, so if the Kohanim are so zariz, then why do they need a blowing of the shofar? No. At the end of the day, while it is true that the shofar was blown in the temple compound, who was it really blown for? It was really blown for the inhabitants of Yerushalayim, not for the Kohanim. Hachanami l'shar ama de Yerushalayim. So to Rabbosai, the suggestion to blow the shofar on Yom Kippur going into Shabbos ultimately it would not be for the Kohanim, but rather would be for who? For the general populace. To which the Gemara says, "Veliska ki hechid l'yodei d'shari ben Akiva asyak min mincha l'mayla." So I will say this is very interesting. In general, the halacha is we know there's a concept of hachana, which means that you are not allowed to do anything on Shabbos, preparation for Shabbos for the weekday. Right? We know this. I will say now the same halacha applies for Yom Kippur. You can't do anything on Yom Kippur to prepare for Motzei Yom Kippur, with one exception. With one exception, the Gemara says you are allowed to prepare food on Yom Kippur afternoon for the sake of the meal on Motzei Yom Kippur. So, for example, the Gemara says Nikivas Yarek. We'll say what's Nikivas Yarek. So you could imagine this. By the way, I guess the best way to explain this is like with lettuce. If you have a head of lettuce, so generally again there are dead leaves on the outside that you're not going to eat. So the halacha is that on the afternoon of Yom Kippur, you are permitted to remove like the dead leaves from vegetables in order to ready them for consumption on Motzei Yom Kippur. So we'll say interesting enough, if you look at Rashi says over here, why are you permitted to do this? Right? Why are you permitted to do this? So Rashi points out over here, the shari hushum dahavi inui shera umezami ve'ina ochel. This is very interesting. I will say. Remember again, the guiding light on Yom Kippur is ve'inisem es nafsho seichem, that you're supposed to afflict yourself on Yom Kippur. So the Gemara says, therefore, you are permitted to go ahead and prepare the vegetables for consumption on Matzah Yom Kippur. Why? Because ein inui gadol mizo. There is no greater affliction of Osai than to be preparing the food for Matzah Yom Kippur on the afternoon of Yom Kippur. So therefore the Gemara suggests as follows. When Yom Kippur, now just so you follow what's happening over here. When Yom Kippur falls on Erev Shabbos, why don't you blow the shofar on Yom Kippur on Friday afternoon so that people should know that Allah Lamaisa, you are permitted to go ahead and prepare the vegetables on Yom Kippur afternoon for the sake of consumption on Matzah Yom Kippur. Then I was saying, now that is something you could do on Yom Kippur that you would not be permitted to do on Shabbos. I was supposed to say, let's say on Shabbos evening, right, a few hours before the end of Shabbos, am I permitted to go ahead and prepare the vegetables for my salad from Malava Malka? And the answer, of course, is no. So why not blow the shofar on Yom Kippur on Friday to show that Yom Kippur is different? Remember, I was supposed to say, no matter how you hold it, remember, we have a general machlokes, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, about the Shabbos Yom Kippur relationship. Rabbi Shmuel says that Shabbos is of greater sanctity than Yom Kippur. Fine. Rabbi Akiva says they're of equal sanctity. No matter how you come up on that machlokes, everyone is agreeing that Allah Lamaisa, you are permitted to prepare food on Yom Kippur afternoon for consumption on Matzah Yom Kippur. Everyone agrees with that. If everyone agrees with it, Rabbosai, then when Yom Kippur falls out on Friday, I should blow the shofar on Yom Kippur afternoon. Why? To show that Yom Kippur is different than Shabbos, at least in this regard of food preparation. Then Yom Kippur afternoon, you can prepare food for the sake of consumption on Matzah Yom Kippur, which is something you cannot do on any given Shabbos. To which the Gemara says, Rav Yosef, I'll tell you why. Lefi shein dochin shavos lahatir. Boss, remember again, the act of blowing a shofar is Shavuos, is a rabbinic prohibition, right? There's no biblical prohibition to blow a shofar on Shabbos, or for that matter, again, on Yom Tov. It's a rabbinic prohibition. So Rav Yosef says, we do not go ahead and set aside a rabbinic prohibition in order to permit something. In order to permit something. Look at Rashi. Lefein shein dochen shavos lahatir. Tzkiya shofar shavosu. V'kamr delitchei lahodia heter b'nekiv hasiyak in dochen shavos lahatir. El lesar kigon yom tov shchalos. So let's listen to this. Rav Yosef says something very interesting. When would we permit blowing the shofar? We would only permit a rabbinic prohibition in order to save you from potentially committing another prohibition. So I will say, for example, if Yom Tov falls out on Friday, let's assume for right now everyone agrees that you blow the shofar on Friday afternoon, that is Yom Tov. Why? Why? To remind people that Yom Tov, which is much more permissive, is coming to an end and Shabbos is starting. That's when we allow you to blow the shofar. So to save you from a prohibition. But to go ahead and blow the shofar to remind you that something is permitted, Rav Yosef says we don't do that. We don't do that. So the Gemara says, Rav Shisha Reid Rav Idi Amar, Rav Shisha Reid Rav Idi says, Shvus Krova Hitiru, Shvus Rechoka Lo Hitiru. And I will say the only time we allow you to blow the shofar is when it's ultimately, again, to allow you to do something that is permitted in an immediate fashion. But to allow you to do something that's going to be permitted in a further off fashion. I will say, for example, what does that mean? If we're talking about a case of Yom Kippur falling out on Erev Shabbos, so remember again, anything you're going to eat on Yom Kippur is going to already have to be prepared when? Probably before Yom Kippur anyway, because you can't cook on Shabbos. As Rabbi say, in general, we allow you to go out and prepare vegetables on Yom Kippur afternoon with the assumption that on Matzah Yom Kippur you're going to cook them. When Yom Kippur goes into Shabbos, you can't cook them anyway. So Lemaisa, again, the act of blowing the shofar on Yom Kippur afternoon, Friday afternoon, doesn't really do anything. All it does is it reminds you next year. It reminds you next year that Yom Kippur afternoon you could prepare food to be cooked on Matzah Yom Kippur. And that we don't allow. Ushvus krovet, is that true? They both say that we would allow you ultimately again to violate the rabbinic prohibition, in this case to blow the shofar, to remind you that something immediate is permitted. Vatinan, we learned Yom Kippur Shechalios Erev Shabbos. They both say, now watch this. Let's say Yom Tov falls out on Erev Shabbos. Yom Tov falls out on a Friday. Token velo mavdilin. Right? Ultimately, you're going to say what happens. You blow the shofar on Yom Tov afternoon. This is what we said before. Why do you blow the shofar on Yom Tov Friday afternoon? I'll say there's a good reason. Because remember, again, Yom Tov has a whole host of heterim that do not apply on Shabbos, right? Yom Tov you can engage in Ochel Nefesh, Shabbos you can't. So when Yom Tov falls out on a Friday, we have to blow the shofar to remind people Yom Tov is coming to an end, Shabbos is starting. V'lo mavdilin. But I will say we don't make Havdalah Friday afternoon going into Friday night. We don't make Havdalah from Yom Tov going into Shabbos. Matzei Shabbos, what happens if Yom Tov falls out on Saturday night, Matzei Shabbos? Then Mavdilin, we go to make Havdalah. Velo token, but we don't sound the shofar. Now, both say, now why would you sound the shofar here? You would sound the shofar over here to remind people that now what? Although on Shabbos, Ochel Nefesh was prohibited, now Ochel Nefesh is permitted. Now Rashi points out when we're speaking of blowing the shofar, when would you blow the shofar? On Matzei Shabbos. Not Shabbos itself, but on Matzei Shabbos. Va'amai, but why not blow the shofar? Litaka, ki'echi deledei deshari b'shchita la'altar. Both say we should blow the shofar. Rashi is now again, when should we blow the shofar? After Shabbos is over. Immediately after Shabbos is over, we should blow the shofar even before V'hurachum. Why? To remind us that shchita is now permitted on Matzei Shabbos. Ella mechavarta kid Rav Yosef. Rather, Rabbi say it seems that the logic ultimately again is like Rav Yosef. Maybe Rabbi say that what? The only time we allow for the blowing of a shofar, Rabbi say, when it's rabbinically prohibited, is to save you from a prohibition. But we do not blow the shofar in order to tell you that things are permitted. So halacha l'maisa, that's why when Yom Tov goes into Shabbos, let's say Yom Tov falls out on a Friday, we'll say the halacha is that historically they would blow the shofar on Friday afternoon, Yom Tov afternoon going into Shabbos. Why? To remind people that Yom Tov was coming to an end. Therefore, again, the heter of Ochel Nefesh was coming to an end, and Shabbos was beginning. But let's say if Yom Kippur fell out on Friday afternoon, they would not go ahead and sound the shofar. Why not? Because Rabbi say from a prohibition perspective, Yom Kippur and Shabbos are exactly the same. So ultimately, again, nothing is fundamentally changing, and therefore halacha l'maisa, shofar not be blown. But on Yom Kippur, you are permitted to go ahead and prepare food on the afternoon of Yom Kippur for consumption on Matzah Yom Kippur, which is something that is prohibited on Shabbos. That's fine, but we would not allow for the blowing of the shofar to tell you that something is permitted. Rather, the only time the shofar, because remember, blowing of the shofar is a rabbinic prohibition. The other time we'll go ahead and we'll set aside the rabbinic prohibition is to save you from what? From potentially violating something biblical. Incredible. Am Rabbi Zera. Am Rabbi Abba, Am Rabbi Huna. Yom Kippurim shechal yos b'Shabbos. So let's listen to this. So now, but here's what I know. What happens if Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos itself? Asra b'nekivas yarek. So this is very interesting. So remember, we said before that one of the interesting dispensations on Yom Kippur is you are permitted to engage in hachana. You are permitted to prepare food on Yom Kippur for the sake of consumption on Matzah Yom Kippur. Now, both say, so just to understand the logic in that, that's not because the Isra of hachana, the Isra of preparation doesn't apply on Yom Kippur. In other words, they both say, if you're going ahead and you have something else you need to take care of on Yom Kippur, you can't prepare for that on Yom Kippur itself. It's only by food. And again, as Rashi pointed out, the reason for that is because the guiding light principle of Yom Kippur is v'inisem es nafsho seichem. You will afflict your soul. Affliction is the essence of Yom Kippur. And therefore the Gemara understands preparing food on Yom Kippur when you can't eat it, ein affliction gedola mizol, right? That's affliction. So now what happens when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos? So the Gemara says in that case, you cannot prepare the vegetables on Yom Kippur afternoon, on Yom Kippur Shabbos afternoon for consumption on Yom Kippur night. The Rabbi say ultimately, what's the logic there? Because in that case, in Yom Kippur and Shabbos coincide. The halachos of Shabbos really take precedence, and therefore Shabbos hachana is always aser, right? Preparation for chol for weekday is always aser, and therefore in that case, even preparation of food on Shabbos Yom Kippur afternoon will be aser. Incredible. So the Gemara says, Amarav Mano, Tana, Minayin Yom Kippur Shachalos Shabbos Shasam Nekivas Yarek. So I say, how do we know that when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, you're not prepared to prepare you're not permitted to prepare the vegetables on Shabbos Yom Kippur afternoon? Talmud Lomar Shabbason Shavus. The pasuk says, ultimately again that Yom Kippur is a Shabbos Shabbason, or excuse me, that Shabbos ultimately again is a Shabbason. So why the need to call it Shabbason Shabbos Kodesh? What the Gemara is picking up on over here, just call it Shabbos Kodesh. Why does it call Shabbos Shabbason Shabbos Kodesh? To teach us Shavuos. To teach us that there is an extra element of rest. That even when the other Shabbos, which is Yom Kippur, falls out on the regular Shabbos, Shabbos Kodesh, even the things that are normally permitted on Yom Kippur, on Shabbos, on Yom Kippur of Shabbos, ultimately it will not be permitted on Yom Kippur that falls out on regular Shabbos. So Shavuos, you have to rest. What does it mean you have to rest? If it means when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, you can't do malacha, that's obvious. Rather, the extra word Shabbason must be teaching me that what? That when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, you are not permitted to go ahead and prepare the vegetables on Yom Kippur, Shabbos afternoon, for the sake of consumption on Matzei Shabbos, Matzei Yom Kippur. Am Rabbi Chibra Abba, Am Rabbi Yochanan, Yom Kippur Meshachalios b'Shabbos Mutter ben Akivas Yaakov. We'll say it's a machlokes. Comes along Rabbi Chibra Abba says Rabbi Yochanan. No, even when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, you are permitted on Shabbos afternoon to what? To prepare the vegetables, which also when we say prepare, it means removing the dead leaves, preparing the vegetables to be cooked on Matzei Shabbos, Matzei Yom Kippur. The Gemara says, is that true? We just learned before that what? How do I know that when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, you are not permitted to prepare the vegetables? Talmud Lomar, on Shabbos Yom Kippur afternoon, Talmud Lomar, Shabbason Shivus. The pasuk says an extra word, Shabbason, which teaches me that what? You must rest. Now, Lemai, I must rest from what? What is that coming to teach me? If you want to say ultimately again it's from malacha, v'haksiv lo sasaka malacha. The pasuk already says you're not permitted to do any malacha. Elalav b'nikivas yerek. Rather, it must be that what? It must be for the preparation ultimately again of vegetables. To which the Gemara says, lo the olam malacha. No, in fact, it's actually a prohibition on malacha. But malacha is already aser. V'lav love ba'asei v'lo sasei. Rather, Rabbi says, come and teach you that on Shabbos, if you violate the malacha, you violate not only a prohibition, but also what? And I say a positive commandment of Shabbason. Tanya Kavase Rabbi Yochanan. We have a brayso that supports Rabbi Yochanan. Yom Kippurim shechalios b'Shabbos, when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, top of Kuf Tesvav. Mutter b'nekivas yarek. You are permitted to go ahead and prepare your vegetables on Shabbos afternoon, Yom Tov afternoon. Skip the parentheses. Furthermore, mefatzin be'agozim, you could crack nuts. So remember again, this is all preparation. This is Yom Kippur falling out on Shabbos. In the afternoon, I want to prepare my food for consumption, for the breakfast, right? On Matzei Shabbos, Matzei Yom Kippur. I could break the nuts. Mefarchasin b'rimona, I could split open the pomegranates. Mina mincha ulamayla mepnei agmas nefesh. Why am I permitted to do this? Rabbi say, after all, is this not preparation? Excuse me. To which the Gemara says, Ne'agmas nefesh, because ultimately, again, this heightens my sense of discomfort and affliction on Yom Kippur. To which the Gemara says, watch this, Tebei Rabbi Yehuda, menakvi karva. So we'll say in the house of Rabbi Yehuda, they would go ahead and what? They would prepare the cabbage. Tebei Rabba gardi kari. They would go ahead and prepare the gourds. Kevan dechazu tahavu kamacharfi. Rabbi said, now what ended up happening? In the house of Rabba, Rabba saw that they started doing this. They started preparing this ultimately again earlier in the day. So I'll say, remember again, the heter, the ability to do this on Yom Kippur, is mina mincha ulamayla, in the late afternoon. Mincha kitana, late afternoon. Rabba saw that they started preparing the food much earlier in the day. So what did Rabba say? Amar lahu, asi garte mi ma'arava, mishmei di Rabbi Yochanan da asir. Ultimately, again, what happened? Right? So he said, a letter arrived from Eretz Yisrael in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, who said it was asir. So we'll say, so Rabba saw that they were kind of abusing this, and therefore he came along and said, a letter came from Rabbi Yochanan, and said that it was asir. But I just say something amazing. So just say the story over here. In Rabba's home, he saw, right, they paskined that even when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, you could still prepare the vegetables for consumption for the break fast on Motzei Shabbos, Motzei Yom Kippur. But you can only do it in Amincho Lamayla. Rabbah saw they were abusing this and they started doing it earlier. So what does Rabbah do? He makes up a story, right? He makes up a story. He says, Rabbi Yochanan sent a letter from Eretz Yisrael that it's usher. You're not allowed to do this anymore. But say, here the Avi Yishayla. This is Rabbah. This is Rabbah. So why can't Rabbah just say, this is usher, you can't do this? Rabbi said, what an affirming story. Because apparently even Rabbah is not the boss in his house. Right? Even Rabbah, ultimately, again, in his own home, he's only Rabbah. Right? To everyone else, he's Rabbah. In his own house, he's Rabbah. But so what does Rabbah do? So Rabbah has to bring, Reb Chaim said. Right? Reb Chaim said, right? Even Rabbah has to quote a gadol from elsewhere. Right? Shabbos say, is an incredible yisod, because really what's happening over here is there was a practice that was ingrained in his household. He realized that he did not have the ability himself to change the practice. So what does he do? He has to invoke the name of the gadol from Eretz Yisrael. The gadol from Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan sent a letter from Eretz Yisrael that this practice is usher. Pretty incredible. We'll say, halach l'maisa, the Shulchan Aruch paskins, like the first opinion, namely, that first of all, again, food preparation, we do paskins, the food preparation on the afternoon of Yom Kippur is permitted for the sake of the break fast on Motzei Yom Tov. That is the halacha. But when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, the dinim of Shabbos overtake the dinim of Yom Kippur. Since on Shabbos, hachana, preparation, any form is going to be asr. When Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, one is not permitted to prepare the food for the break fast in any way. We'll say that is the halacha l'maisa. Hadrun alach ve'ilu kshar. We'll say shkoyach and mazel tov. We'll begin the new parak tomorrow. Incredible. Wishing everyone a wonderful day, beautiful rest of the weekend. Looking forward to a beautiful week of learning together. Shkoyach.